Language Institute. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Diana Murphy. I'm director of the Language Institute at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which is one of the co-sponsors of our grassroots town hall meeting today on sustaining and strengthening less commonly taught languages in the Big Ten in precarious times. I'd like to thank my colleagues from Michigan State University, Emily Heidrich-Ubel and Felix Cronenberg, who helped to organize this meeting, as well as my colleague Jana Martin with the Language Institute at UW-Madison, and thank everyone who has volunteered or agreed to present. And all of you, there was tremendous interest in this meeting, which is just really gratifying in a time when we, I think, are all feeling the pressure, numerous pressures that there's so many people interested in supporting less commonly taught languages. Next slide, please. This meeting was the brainchild of my colleagues Charo Decheverry, Erlen Barnard, and Jen Heckman with the Department of Asian Languages and Cultures at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who suggested that we find a way to come together across the Big Ten, which is now, as you can see, comprised of 18 universities, to share local strengths in less commonly taught languages, to maybe share innovative practices or programs, and explore possible new ways to collaborate across our institutions. We have existing structures, next slide, to facilitate collaboration across the Big Ten that we can perhaps leverage. And we do have colleagues outside of the Big Ten joining us here today. Know that you're very warmly welcome, but most of our conversation is just focused on the context of the Big Ten. And some of those infrastructure, those pieces that are already in place include the Big Ten Academic Alliance and the Big Ten Academic Alliance Course Share Program, which we'll be learning about shortly. The newly formed Big Ten Language Center Alliance, which is having a first meeting of its steering committee in just a week or so, and the interinstitutional initiative funded by the Mellon Foundation at Michigan State University, the Less Commonly Taught and Indigenous Languages Partnership, among many other ways that the BTAA facilitates collaboration among our universities. Next slide, please. And so this meeting came together as a sort of grassroots effort to provide a forum for sharing and exploration at a time of at a difficult time. The reason for the timing, I'm sure, is clear to all of you. It can feel like a perfect storm for less commonly taught languages. The U.S. Department of Education recently terminated all Title VI grants for regional and area studies, international and foreign language education that directly supported less commonly taught languages at many of our institutions in numerous ways, covered those costs of instructors, so supported instruction. Also, in grants other than the National Resource Centers through the International Research and Studies Program, supported instructional materials development. Also through the Language Resource Center, supported instructional materials development in LCTLs and LCTL educator professional development. And then, of course, there is the critical support directly for students through the FLAS. And those grants, as you know, have been terminated. And at the same time, at many of our universities and in some states, models for decision-making and budgetary allocations are being based on metrics such as, for example, class size or the number of students in degree programs. And so our less commonly taught language programs are, almost by definition, they're relatively small, and so they're particularly vulnerable at this point in time. Next slide, please. And LCTL instructors, who are some of the most dedicated and hardworking people I know, are also in vulnerable positions. And so I'd like to conclude just these brief welcome remarks to assert the intrinsic value of less commonly taught languages. What we have in these programs is something valuable, it's precious. Our students, our nation and our students deserve access to opportunities to learn diverse human languages. And our less commonly taught language instructor colleagues, many of whom are working in isolation, deserve our collective support. And so I'm hoping in our conversations today, despite the headwinds that we're all facing, that we can focus on positive steps that we might collectively take to come together across institutions, across languages, across disciplines to support each other, to share ideas and resources, and to support our less commonly taught language programs, colleagues, and students. Next slide, please. So now just a few words about how this meeting will be organized. We'll have a fair amount of presentation to start. So the first part of the meeting will be focused on sharing courses. So we'll have 3 presentations focused on course sharing in less commonly taught languages. Next slide. And then we'll have a number of lightning presentations from colleagues at a number of Big Ten universities. These will be super short. Next slide. And then we'll have time for open discussion, which I hope doesn't descend into total chaos. We'll see how it goes. This is a large group. But we will have, or we do have throughout the meeting, a way for us all to share resources, to share our contact information with each other through a Google Doc, which I'll drop in the chat in just a sec. There are already some links and resources there. Some of the presenters have shared some links. Throughout, we'll have times to stop a couple of times for questions, but please put questions also in the chat as we go. So again, at the end of the presentations, we'll have time for open discussion and maybe a discussion of next steps. So next slide, please. So now I'll turn the floor over to my colleague Laurel Roche with the Big Ten Academic Alliance, who will share with us information about the BTAA Course Share program.
Thank you. And just to start, I do want to thank Diana, Emily, and Felix for organizing today's event. Definitely the Big Ten Academic Alliance appreciates you, and as well as everyone attending today and your work in supporting less commonly taught languages. As I talk about the Big Ten Course Share program, I do want to make a couple notes about who participates. So on this slide, you do see our 18 Big Ten member universities. However, currently, UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington, who are the newest members to the Big Ten, do not yet fully participate in Course Share. They're very excited to be part of it. But they're taking time to ensure that they have the staffing solidly in place to support the program when they launch it. So as such, they're not part of, I'm not mentioning them in today's slides. However, I do talk to their administration regularly, and they are excited to join the program when they're fully able to. Also, while they're not on this graphic, the University of Chicago was a founding member of our consortium way back when we were known as the CIC. So the University of Chicago is grandfathered into the BTA membership, and they do actively participate in Course Share. So I just want to get that background for you. Emily, on the next slide, I outline at its root, our Course Share is a collaborative effort for our Big Ten Arts and Science deans to share LCTL instruction courses across the Big Ten. Originally, the program was created way back in 2005 to assist low enrollment courses, and it was designed with an eye to be curriculum driven. However, over the years, it has evolved. Our deans have narrowed the focus to LCTL instruction only, and we have found that our most successful shares tend to be created on demand by our students. The program operates on guidelines that were agreed to by all of our member deans. And key and forward on the front are that it is only for degree-seeking students of our member universities. Secondly, there is no cost sharing. So there is no tuition and there are no fees charged by the host university to the enrolled students. Sometimes when I get to that point, people are like, yep, I'm no longer interested in the program, and we'll hear more about that. It was also agreed by our deans that member universities could put in place additional criteria for their students to participate. So some elements of execution of Course Share can vary by campus. I'm often asked if our deans are open to expanding the Course Share program beyond LCTL instruction, and our answer is no. They recognize that the current structure does not support expansion. Although they do see the merit of it, it is not in its current structure able to do so. Next slide. This next slide is just to give you a quick enrollment snapshot. I thought you might find it interesting to see how enrollment in CourseShare has evolved through the years, starting with 60 students. And then pre-COVID, we were very excited and overwhelmed when we hit 300. And of course, post-COVID, what we're seeing is a little bit staying in the mid 500s. We're still keeping an eye on this. And I do want you to know these numbers are for the students who are enrolled as receiving the course. It does not reflect numbers of enrollment on a host campus. Next slide. There's 3 core entities involved with supporting the CourseShare program. The Big Ten Academic Alliance, we ensure the dean's guidelines are consistently enforced across the entire program. We also maintain an online portal for hosting and receiving universities to share their enrollment and grade information. The campus coordinator, this is our appointed person responsible for all things CourseShare at their university. And they are truly the heart and soul of this program. Without them, this program is not possible. I see many of you on today's call. Hello, it's so nice to see you. I can't give them gratitude enough. They're the ones that communicate with all the interested and enrolled students, the interested and participating faculty, sometimes the interested parents of the students, the registrars, everyone on their campus. They are that point of contact. They also help to enforce the dean's guidelines and as well as their university's guidelines. They help set the courses up for their students so that they can be enrolled. They check on the course eligibility, so forth and so on. The CourseShare registrar is also key. They're the person on their campus responsible for all CourseShare student records and grades and inputting them in their systems. Of course, there's still faculty, tech room, classroom support, et cetera, that are involved. But I wanted to stress all of us are involved with every single share that it takes place. I also want you to know that CourseShare is a very, very small part of each of the individuals that I've just named job responsibilities. And depending on how active their university, it can demand a fair amount of time, I'm sure you can imagine. As we go to our final slide, I do want to say that CourseShare has enrolled over 1,500 students in our time. And just last year, we're really excited. We gave access to 56 different languages across the Big Ten to our students. That's pretty impressive in my mind. And that's pretty much where we stay. We're usually giving between 45 to mid 50 every year. So it is a success. The deans do believe it's meeting its goal of providing access to less commonly taught languages for our students. But it definitely has limitations. This final slide's identified a few of them, namely about a lot of our shares that are set up have one student that enrolls. So sometimes it's a lot of work for one student, and you might question, is it worth it? In the first bullet, I mentioned 25% of our shares were canceled last year. That's a lot of time to set up a course for one person, and then 25% of them dropped out. So that is an issue for us. Our staffing is very specific to supporting language instruction. That's part of the reason we can't expand easily. Some campuses, the CourseShare coordinator is part of the language center. It's someone's full-time responsibility. Other campuses, it's a faculty member, and they rotate every few years. That is hard to keep the momentum going for the program. But it is highly valued by our participants. And I said it does meet our goal that we're looking for. But I am excited to hear about new and other efforts that we're hearing about today as well, and to be part of today's conversations. So with that, I'll close, and I think we're moving on. Thank you, Diana.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Laurel. And we have a number of presentations, and so we'll move now to my colleague, Emily Heydrich-Ubel. So next slide, Emily. Yeah, who will speak to more proactive and strategic models for sharing courses in less commonly taught languages.
All right, thanks, Diana. So I wanted to just put this up here because I didn't want to read it all. I wear many hats to support LCTLs. In my job, I am one of the CourseShare coordinators now that Laurel talked about. I took over from a wonderful colleague and do a great many things. And a lot of my talk will come from my experience in facilitating different grant projects, working with a lot of colleagues across the country. And then the graphics today are going to come from this open access book that I helped co-edit on sharing less commonly taught languages in higher education. So what Laurel talked about and our Big Ten course share is a consortium model. So in a consortium, any institution can share with any other institution, and it can be in various formats. We can do multiple institutions at the same time. And as Laurel said, generally this is a very reactive structure. A student requests a course, administrator identifies a course within the Big Ten Academic Alliance that could accommodate that student, and then the instructor accommodates that remote student. We wait for students to identify their need and voice it, and then we react. One of the grants that I had the pleasure to work on was the Less Commonly Taught in Indigenous Languages Partnership. We kind of turned that on its head. Instead of waiting for students to request a course, we instead had an instructor team develop online courses that could be offered across the Big Ten course share. We had administrators advertise the course both to the departments as well as to the other course share coordinators, and then students from across the Big Ten could join that course, which enriched the experience for all students. And there's one thing that we could think about as we think about how could we leverage course share differently than we have been, possibly. We could move towards sticky interdependence. There's an article that I can throw in the chat really quickly, right here, from the Chronicle about the libraries of the Big Ten working toward managing their separate collections as if they were a single shared one. And so it's different than the current utilization of course share because the time horizon for language support is longer than 1 or 2 semesters. There's a financial implication of commitment because they are, managing their collection as one. And there's a requirement for joint commitment, planning, and collaboration to make this work. And I'm not proposing that we get rid of course share structure in its own way, but that individual institutions who are interested in leveraging it differently could participate in some of these models to leverage it in different ways and expand our opportunities for our students. One of the ways that we have thought about this would be to coordinate teaching or curricula with partner universities. So for example, let's say Vietnamese. If we had University A and University B, both with Vietnamese instructors, you could have University A be working on teaching level 1 and level 3, or maybe a combined 3 and 4 course, and University B could offer level 2 and level 4, or maybe a topics course or heritage course, and they could flip-flop between them, but work on joint coordination of that curricula. Pros to this would be we would jointly do some curricular development. We would ensure continuity for our students to be able to offer a full suite of courses, which isn't always possible with one single instructor. They can't offer all 4 levels all the time. We could develop a suite of courses, maybe even advanced courses, developing a minor between there. And then the student interaction between universities, especially when we have low enrolled courses, would enrich the experience of all students, especially for those who have like a handful of students. You can't really have a conversation course with 1 student or 2 students in there. It's really hard to do. So again, having more students involved in those would be a benefit. Cons would be students might prefer their home instructor and would choose not to participate in courses that were offered online. And all instructors need to be on board. And I think every one of us has experienced the politics of some departments where it just doesn't work with, certain colleagues if they're not willing to participate in certain things. And then articulation of learning goals. Does each department have they articulated what proficiency level their students need to get to? And is that being done at all of the institutions? How is that going? Another option would be salary support. So guaranteeing a language offering and a number of seats in exchange for a portion of salary support. So for example, if we were teaching our Vietnamese course, another institution could say, hey, we will help fund that to make sure that we get a certain number of, seats over the next 3 years so that we can guarantee that we have this. And especially if the languages are grant funded, like we've experienced this year, we had to cancel a lot of courses last minute because the funding ran out. So there's cost savings There's continuity of instructor, but the cons would be it doesn't necessarily guarantee the articulation of courses, especially if it's a single instructor. You don't necessarily get all of those levels. And then for thinking about enrollments, does the home institution get to count those outside enrollments for the purposes of having to meet the course minimums that may exist at those institutions, to make sure that we can offer those courses? Another way would be to do a direct bilateral exchange. So this is showing where we have, language A, we want language B, the other institution, wants the opposite. So you just exchange that. And so variations on this would be that you commit to offering the language for a number of years with a certain number of seats available. It could be mediated by course share, but then you have a firmer agreement for both of those languages over the next few years and could advertise a little bit more confidently. And then having stable access instead of requesting that each semester. And then there could be articulation issues if single instructors can't meet the needs of upper level students. So those are just some ideas of how we might be able to leverage that differently. I did want to mention that there is an opportunity to continue these kinds of conversations in the future. One of my colleagues asked me to share this with a conference on innovative approaches to language education. It's an in-person conference at Colgate University. It's free to attend except for, the travel to get there, which obviously is not insignificant, but they said that they want to bring people together to find avenues for collaborations and research initiatives, and they're looking for call for proposals now. So I wanted to share that with you before we get on to the third kind of model, which is an asymmetrical model. And that is what my colleague Felix Cronenberg is going to be speaking about in his presentation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Felix.
Thank you, Emily. So the models presented so far are all symmetrical. So we've seen consortium models and we've seen bilateral exchanges, and those tend to be universities that are similar and alike. And our asymmetrical model, and by our, I say Emily and I have been working on this for a few years as part of our National Less Commonly Taught Languages Resource Center. And I'll pop the link in the chat for the more information about this model. But we've developed this model to overcome the real opportunity that's missed when we are not working with institutions that are outside of our consortia or that are unlike us. So for Michigan State University, there are a number of private institutions we're not working with. There are liberal arts colleges, community colleges, regional public universities, for example. And so the asymmetrical model takes this into account, that each partner is not the same and has very different needs. So if you look at the graphic that Emily has created, institution one, like Michigan State, for example, might offer a lot of languages. And institution two, let's say a small liberal arts college that only has few languages, might want to be more on the receiving end, or rather sending end, sending their students to the other institution and actually exchanging money for this. So the money part is one of the big issues that we found and that we are finding with the consortium and the exchange model. It's really hard. It's really hard. Pedagogically, technologically, we've gotten really good at exchanging courses, but when it gets to issues of sharing revenue, it's a really tricky one. And if we could see the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the two asymmetrical sides to this. So the partner institution on the left is the sending institution, the one that doesn't offer the language. What are the benefits for them? Certainly offering more languages that they otherwise couldn't offer. And this is especially for top-level administrators important because there's less risk involved for them. They don't have to hire faculty and support faculty because that is not something that they are able to do. Other benefits are that through the model, students at the institution can retain access to financial aid, they can earn regular credits, they pay normal tuition, and only a portion goes, and I will detail this in a second, to the hosting institution. Think of this a little bit like study abroad, and we've been doing this for a very long time, where we might send students abroad and pay like a local university to offer some language courses, and then credits are re-imported. So there is some precedent to some of this. Now, what are the benefits to the institution that is offering the Lichtels and that is offering the language courses? Certainly in the classroom, this can be very important. Lichtel courses are often very small, and having more students and having more diverse students in our classrooms can provide better ways of to do group work, to do pair work, and also have students to learn about other institutions. This is especially important for upper Lichtel courses, which see even fewer students and that are even less often offered. There's also an equity, as I will explain in a second, is about the money. Is one thing that we've tried to incorporate into this model is that not each institution has the same funds that they can pay for their courses. And so we try to put a model in place that takes this into account so that we're not only going after the universities that have a lot of funding, a lot of resources, but also those that have fewer. And then certainly a big part of this for the hosting institution is to get actual money into a pot that can be distributed to support Lichtel education and to kind of even out these peaks and valleys that come with offering Lichtel courses and also get off soft money. And as we're seeing in this year, being on soft money, being on grant funding can be really difficult for these programs to sustain them. So in the next slide, you will see, and this is just one potential model, is what would happen if a student pays this tuition at their institution. 75% go to MSU and 25% stay at their own institution. So an institution that has higher tuition would send more money than an institution that has lower tuition, and that is that equity issue. And then the last slide is about a few of the technical parts about the responsibilities. And all of this is on our website at the NLRC. I'm sharing this link here. It's also in the resource document. Is what is each institution doing in the offering? One thing that I wanted to stress, I'm not going over the whole slide, but one thing to stress obviously is marketing and advertising of these programs. How do students find out about it? That is always a key part, I think. I think the main part and where we are with this is that these are all, that there's a template that we developed, and this would be then, in fact, multiple bilateral exchanges, right? Because this is not a consortium in that sense. The way we are looking at this, and this is a tricky thing, if working through the administration, we've learned a lot. This is not easy, and especially the kind of financial aspects of this are really difficult. There's also a difficulty of finding partners out to send money outside of the institution. This is something, especially in the climate right now, as universities are very cautious about this, that this is not an easy thing to build up these partnerships. But what we do intend with this model is that others take this model on. This is not Michigan State's model. This is a model for any institution to implement. And we've been in touch with several universities, including the Big Ten, who are interested in this. And we'd really like to know from you if you are using this model or a similar model, to hear back from you. We have run a pilot about for this, and it was really interesting. But this is not an easy project to get off the ground. But certainly something that has a future. And I think in order to keep this, we really have to think about the money aspect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Felix, Emily, and Laurel. That was a lot of information, really helpful information. We'll take just a few minutes now for questions. There were some questions in the chat about scheduling for schools that are on quarter systems, working with schools on semester systems. I don't know if anyone would like to speak to that. If there are any other questions, maybe put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand. Also using the Zoom raise hand. Would anyone like to speak to the challenges and coordinating schedules?
It's generally easier for the people who start later or to start earlier to accommodate, to send the students to the people who start later, right? If students have to start before their normal school year starts. So for example, University of Minnesota starts after we do. We often have to accommodate a lot of students being like, oh wait, my class already started, even though they're very communicative there, saying like, your course has started, right? Remember, they're going to be reaching out and all that kind of stuff. So it can be a little tricky, but I'll let others speak to more.
It can be tricky, but we definitely have that happening right now. So it's just a matter, is your student committed to take the course, and how committed, and knowing that schedule up front when you're talking to them.
Great, thank you. Brian, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead. Okay. Maybe that was your cat. We can move on. If oh, Brian, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I thought I'd hit mute and unmute, and I had not.
Yeah,
So
don't worry, you're
an
good.
additional question. Can you hear me?
Brian, keep your eye on the road, but yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So the other issue with the quarter semester system is not just the start date. It's also the fact that if you're on the quarter system, you have a 10-week quarter before Christmas, and then you have two 10-week quarters after Christmas. And so it's like trying to figure out like how do they match up with how do 3 quarters match up with 2 semesters as far as like the grading goes and stuff too? Like, are we going to grade them just for fall and then grade winter and spring together? And like it adds that complication as well. I'm saying that because I'm at UCLA and we're on the quarter system. So if you could speak to that also, how that has worked in practice.
Great, thank you, Brian. I think it's hilarious that you're in LA and in your car. Would somebody like to speak to that? And then we're short on time, so I think we might need to leave the other questions until after our lightning presentations. Would anybody like to speak to the challenges with grading?
I can't speak to the challenges of the scheduling and the grading, but another challenge to throw into the mix is that of coordination of proficiency level across years. So what counts as 3rd year in one school, what counts as 2nd year in one school is also something else to be negotiated.
Hi, Corey, it's nice to see you, and absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think what we will do now is leave other questions or challenges. There are many to sharing courses until after the lightning presentations. We'll move on to those now, and then have time after these presentations for questions for the presenters. And then again, we'll open the floor up just for open discussion. So our first lightning presentation this afternoon was by Stephanie Treat, who is unable to join us today, but we wanted to include Stephanie's slide here. Stephanie's done some really phenomenal work at the University of Minnesota with CourseShare, and there are some links to some of the resources that Stephanie's created in that Google Doc that we shared. So then our first, I think, actual presentation today will be by my colleague Erlen Barnard from UW-Madison, who will speak to departmental, campus, and regional collaborations for expanding LCTL access. Erlen, take it away.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to share how we are expanding access to less commonly taught languages across 3 scopes: departmental, campus, and regional. So let me start with something very immediate. Because of federal budget cuts, a number of institutions in our network have had to cancel LCTL courses this year. So when those cancellations happened, we felt the ripple effects right away. Our department stepped in quickly to accommodate increased PTAA CourseShare requests in Filipino, Indonesian, Thai, Vietnamese, and Persian. This has often meant taking on last-minute enrollments and reworking course schedules, sometimes on very short notice, to make sure that displaced students don't lose their chance to keep learning. So with strong departmental support, our instructors have shown extraordinary flexibility in adjusting times and formats so that students facing disruptions could transition smoothly into our classes. At the campus scope, we've also created a pathway for students from other institutions to join us. We worked with our Dean of Continuing Studies and built an option for students to register under a special online student category with modest tuition. So this gives learners access to languages they otherwise wouldn't be able to study and allows us to share our expertise more widely. And that connects to the regional work that I wanted to highlight. Through the Southeast Asian Language Council, or SILC, we've been promoting collaboration on several fronts. First, course sharing. We've been working closely with GETSI, or GETSIA, the Consortium for Graduate Education and Training in Southeast Asian Studies, which brings together all the Southeast Asia NRCs. Together, we've been prioritizing collaboration over competition, jointly awarding scholarships, helping students study languages not offered at their home campus through virtual options, and connecting them to existing exchanges. So we hope to build on this strong collaborative framework to strengthen course sharing across the BTAA and beyond. Second, materials development. Instead of each program working in isolation, SILC supports collaborative teams of instructors from different universities to design teaching resources. These projects undergo mentoring, peer review, and piloting at multiple sites, which both improves quality and ensures broad applicability. And thirdly, professional development. Our model keeps instructors working together after workshop, producing concrete tools and curricula that strengthen not just one classroom, but the entire field. So really, what we've seen is that when we combine local flexibility, campus support, and inter-institutional collaboration, we can expand access to LECTLs, support instructors, and share resources efficiently. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Erlyn. And that gets to that point about the challenge of coordinating across institutions when it comes to curricula and proficiency levels of students. Next, we have Sonia Manriquez from Indiana University speaking to building regional connections through the ILACS consortium. Sonia?
Hi, everyone. Well, as you all know, languages carry so much more than just words. They're a connection to a community, to a region, to a history, so much bigger than these languages. And at IU, unfortunately, like other universities, we're going through some major challenges: budget cuts, canceled courses, and the termination of degree programs. And so in this moment of loss, what we've done through the Indigenous, Latin American, and Caribbean Studies Consortium is create shared resources. So what ILACS is, it was founded at the University of Michigan through our partner center at the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies at Michigan. And now it includes 6 of us, and that is Indiana, Ohio State, Chicago, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And our mission is to strengthen research, programming, and learning opportunities in these regional studies. So, and we're doing this in 3 different ways: language preservation, resource sharing, and collaborative programming. Language preservation, so we're just sharing that we have these courses available, like Haitian Creole here at IU, Nahuatl, Portuguese, Quechua, Yoruba, and our resource sharing. So we're making sure that students across campuses know that these languages exist and that they can take them. And this is also including, outside of the BTAA, non-credit language and cultural workshops, like IU's Haitian Creole program. And the collaborative programming, so we're also focusing a lot on virtual programming and hybrid events, including film screenings, speaker series, and even conferences, so that we're able to maintain this programming as these challenges are being faced. For example, here at IU, our Yucatec Maya Yucatec Maya class was canceled, but still through these offerings, several of our students are able to take Quechua and Nahuatl through Michigan. So this matters because it's more than just an alliance, more than just a consortium. We're preserving access, especially to universities like ours, where these challenges are growing. And we can't deal with these challenges alone. So we're doing whatever we can to work together and create and keep a space for Indigenous and Caribbean languages, to connect students here in Southern Indiana to communities in the Andes, in the Caribbean, Mesoamerica. So as these funding cuts are happening and so much more to get rid of access to this knowledge, where consortiums like ours and all these regional connections are really just sharing these resources to make sure that these languages and this knowledge is shared beyond state borders, country borders, and no university, especially IU, can carry this alone. So that's why it's been so much more helpful that we have partner universities to do this. So we're not really just a network, we're a community, and we're looking to preserve that access to the linguistic wealth and knowledge of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Hey, Sonia, thank you so much. Next, we have Arturo Diaz and Tanya Ivanova-Sullivan from the University of California, Los Angeles, who will speak to building pathways for LICTL growth in higher education.
Hello, everyone. There are two parts to our presentation, so I'll go through mine first. Community-based heritage language schools can be a nexus between K-12 institutions and higher education, helping universities foster community engagement, research, and student motivation in LICTL programs. These schools fill a pedagogical and cultural gap in the LICTL instruction of school districts and can help students meet language requirements in advance. For example, Russian and Ukrainian heritage learners in Los Angeles community schools often test out of high school language requirements through exams that are administered through our UCLA Center for World Languages. Yet school districts are often unaware of the community schools that impact their students. Universities can bridge this gap to benefit all parties, such as facilitating collaboration to create student pathways to achieve the state and global seals of biliteracy, further incentivizing language study. Such efforts have garnered attention from state-level language coordinators in Minnesota, Virginia, and Washington, who aim to build partnerships between community schools and their districts. Connections with such stakeholders promotes research that bridges theory and practice. For instance, the Indus Arts Council of Texas pursues research partnerships to broaden awareness of the Urdu community beyond traditional higher ed Hindi Urdu programs. Ultimately, partnerships among colleges, community schools, and districts can enhance language instruction across educational levels, expanding learning opportunities for heritage speakers of LICTLs. And now Tanya will continue.
Thank you, Arturo. Hello, everyone. I will talk about the UC Online language courses. That's University of California system. These courses are transforming access to LECTLs across California and are especially impactful for heritage language learners of these languages. This fall, for example, nearly all UC Online language offerings are in LECTLs, and this is great. For example, we have Amharic, Dutch, Ukrainian, Punjabi, Polish, and so on. Because of their flexibility and accessibility, these courses reach students from dispersed diasporic communities across California. For example, California's large Filipino population is concentrated in the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and San Diego. An online course such as Filipino for heritage learners can bridge these geographic gaps while also strengthening cultural connections across the state. For heritage language learners, this online model supports the three key ingredients of motivation as outlined in the self-determination theory. Autonomy, which is the choice and flexibility to pursue language study that is personally meaningful to the students. Competence, structured tasks that build on existing knowledge and increase confidence. And existing knowledge is what heritage language learners have. And relatedness, a shared space to connect with others with similar backgrounds and goals. By meeting heritage language learners where they are, linguistically, geographically, and culturally, UC Online opens new pathways to sustain language identity and community across California. And so if now you can just play that short clip. This is from the UC Online Filipino class. It's a short, we'll need probably sound. It's a short sound through the share, when you share it, right? Just share computer sound.
I would have to like stop the whole thing and reshare to do that. So
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You're right. So you can see it's in the document. Thank you so much.
Oh, great. Thank you, Tanya. And right, so the link to this clip is in that Google document. Wonderful. Thank you. And then next up, YOLO. I don't know. YOLO? YOLO.
YOLO.
Okay.
YOLO.
I'm going to leave it there. Take it away, colleague.
Hi, everyone. Really nice to see you. My name is Sana Dozier, and Carter is Carter Griffith.
Hello.
We're gonna talk about YOLO. So we're really excited to share our newly developed interactive digital language discovery tool. It's a quiz base that matches students with languages they might not have considered, because your lictals deserve more than accidental discovery. Do you want to help students to discover new lictals to learn?
Introducing YOLO, your orientation to language option. As Sana said, it's an interactive digital language discovery tool. It helps students explore the UMN's diverse language offerings. It's an engaging quiz-based experience. Think a BuzzFeed quiz. The quiz questions are available in 4 modes. Students choose between standard, millennial, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha.
Why? We really wanted incoming students to discover all of UMN's language offerings, because most of incoming students don't realize we offer 28 languages, from Finnish to Hmong to Ojibwe. So they can't make informed decisions about what to study. So now, instead of clicking through endless course lists, they're using the YOLO tool. So we have turned, I guess I'll stick with what I already know, into, I had no idea you offered a Romo. Now I'm very curious.
So who was YOLO designed for? It was designed primarily for incoming freshmen and for transfer students. It's also designed for use by advisors. It's a way for advisors to raise their awareness of the language offerings at the UMN, and they in turn can pass that raised awareness on to their advisees.
When incoming students discover YOLO during orientation, it's built right into their welcome experience. Advisors also use it during their one-on-one academic planning consultations when students are mapping out their courses. And we're also seeing students share the link with each other, making it their go-to resource for exploring languages. The beauty is, YOLO is always available online. Any student can use it anytime, whether they're reconsidering their language choice or exploring a minor.
So scan the QR code, check out the quiz, and if anyone would like to continue the conversation, please let us know. YOLO. Thank you very much.
YOLO!
Okay, I feel that like you two should be on Shark Tank or something. Thank you very much. And then our final lightning presentation today is a decanal perspective. So Sonia Frischi from Michigan State University will briefly speak about less commonly taught languages, strategic integration from the Dean's Office perspective.
Hi, thank you so much. And I apologize for my reductionist slide. It was a busy week when I was putting that together, so I'm going to add a couple of things. And I just love the lightning talks that just happened, because a couple of them touch upon a couple of things that I want to mention. First of all, when I was working with Emily Ubel and Felix Kronenberg on the sticky integration initiative, I just wanted to say that when we were talking with the provost and we were talking with the registrar's office, we got a lot of buy-in, because these folks actually wanted to support less commonly taught languages. They were very excited that of anything that can create more return on investment, right, which is their vocabulary. and thinking in terms of how can you get more students in those seats. Some of these symmetrical models, asymmetrical models that we've been trying out here, we've really gotten a lot of buy-in from upper administration. So thinking in terms of the different types of audiences that you might be able to think of, set partnerships. I know we've had, for instance, lots of a success with a dedicated partnership with Vietnamese, sharing with one other campus. That's been really, really good. So having clear and not maybe always sharing out to absolutely everyone, but creating specific collaborations with various colleges that have need for your language, depending upon perhaps for what their majors are, or that you have folks doing graduate work. Maybe you have, and later on my slide, I talk about research and graduate language needs. We often are encouraging researchers to write the money to support LCTLs into their grants. And that has sustained several language instructors over time because those grants continue over and over again. What I want to talk about too is just the perception outside of the language spaces. We don't really realize this, but the term less commonly taught language is really something that I think as a field we need to just change. It does not do us any service. Most of the time when people hear less commonly taught, they think, well, why would I take that? Because they infer that not lots of people speak it. In fact, I've often heard that people are assuming that less commonly taught means that the language is going to die in a few years. You know, they hear about the number of languages that are being taught and they think, well, this one, you know, if it's not commonly taught, why should I want to take it in the first place? So I've started saying less commonly taught, but more commonly spoken. And so I do think we need to think about how, for lack of a better term, you know, if I'm here talking to marketing communications, they say, how are you branding yourself? How are you marketing yourself? And I think a conversation about that would really be important. Already heard about from my wonderful UCLA colleagues, the importance of a sense of belonging among heritage students. And here's an article on that. Maybe some of you, depending upon whether you're in a red or purple or blue state, can use more of it than less of it, but I think there are a lot of good ideas in there. And that's an essential audience to have in these classes. And the other thing, then along with that goes the wide variety of faculty with diverse linguistic expertise. I've also found that a lot of folks on this campus that the LCTLs are just not even visible. People don't even know that we're here, that we even teach these languages. So consider ways that you can make them more visible on campus. It could be how they're listed in the catalog. It could be the numbering system. Is that so embedded, or how can you get the word out, go into different spaces that might be generating more interest on your campus and across campus? Just really be thinking in terms, how can they be more visible? The other thing that I wanted to mention is the growing partnerships with community colleges, the desire to articulate with community colleges for transfer students. This can be a challenging space because community colleges offer only the first 2 years often. So this is where I think we could go back to some of those symmetrical, asymmetrical models and see how we can be articulating across, maybe doing some dual enrollment, something with community colleges as we shift more to that model. There are a lot of Big Ten states that are investing with free community college, so students are going to be going there first. Let's think about how we can solve that new population and help them transfer to our campuses and get the 4-year degree with the language of their interest. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Sonia. We now have time for questions for our colleagues who gave lightning presentations before we open up the floor to discussion. I see there's a question in the chat, Sonia, for you. If you could speak to how strategic integration serves faculty with diverse linguistic expertise.
That is really just even more greater awareness of what the offerings are on campus. I often find that it's the international faculty who are great proponents of language study. You can, if you're trying to promote your language, the international faculty get that, and they can promote in their classes. They can also promote just the existence of the fact that they know that their language is being taught on campus and is available through CourseShare. And I think that you also have faculty who want to take languages. So I'm just thinking in terms of different audiences, and finding partners to set up more standardized offerings that, that's been spoken of too, that's a challenge as well. So ways that you can be proactive. I hope that helps.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, other questions? I'm keeping an eye on the chat. I don't see other questions for our presenters. Please raise your hand. Put a question in the chat. Great. Thank you all so much. That was so much food for thought. We will now conclude the formal part of our town hall meeting today. So we'll stop recording. Thank you all so much for sharing your expertise, the innovative projects, initiatives at your institutions.